All right, I was supposed to get on here before this song started because that song's too crazy. That song will go too crazy, and then it's a whole different vibe. So hang on. You hear that building? We can't. No, it's too much. No, we can't let it get to the top like that. Sorry, hang on. Okay, yeah, we'll just keep it chill. What is up, everybody? Hello, and welcome. Yes, this is a Warhammer stream. This is not for everyone. Not everyone will find enjoyment from this stream, and not everyone is welcome to. But there is a new version of Warhammer, man. And I'm actually pretty excited about the addition. I will say, though, that last night was like a fucking disaster, dude. I will literally never feel bad about mistakes or problems with my stream ever again. Okay? And I'm... wow. It was... Did any of you guys watch it? It was a... It was a disaster, pretty much. About as bad as it could have been as far as like a stream and how it all began and started. Luckily, the actual cinematic was really cool, and I think the changes to the game are actually really cool. But my God, oh, it felt so tough. Like, because like I wanted to be like, yo, GW, I'm trying to get people into this game. You're fucking this up big time. Like, this is so bad, dude. For 11th edition, like. It's supposed to be a real big deal. Yeah, wasn't that great. But the what it actually was and what has happened to the game is actually quite spectacular. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Again, definitely not a stream for everybody. We're going to get into like the weeds of the rules of the game, the things that are coming, that are changing. Because I have a lot of thoughts. I want to talk about it and speculate about it. It's one of the reasons that I love strategy games is getting into the head of the design space, and the design space in games, especially really good games. Like if you ever played like, Magic the Gathering, I think is a great example that's really stood the test of time. Seeing how the designers think about that space is always really, really interesting to me. And I did not expect this many changes to Warhammer, honestly. Like, I thought a lot of the rumors had suggested that this would be sort of like a 10.5 edition, meaning it would basically be what we already have with like some slight upgrades and slight changes. I don't feel that way at all. I feel like they really shook the game up in a way that a lot of people, especially a lot of competitive players, I think, are going to have to sort of grapple with, because it is quite crazy. So yeah, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it all today. That's the plan. That's my phone. That's what we have going on. Art of War was very positive on it all. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's the other thing, is I haven't really seen what a lot of other people have said about it. Like, I think I watched a little bit of Auspex Tactics. I was watching Valrac last night. I hadn't watched what Art of War said or anything like that. I'll be really interested to get their take on it. I'll tell you this, it's kind of cool coming into it from the perspective of like I've played a lot of strategy games. Like, I really like strategy games. And I really like tabletop games too. I'm relatively new to Warhammer in the sense that I've been playing for like 3 to 4 years now. But I've played like a shit ton of these other great model games like X-Wing. I think X-Wing, if you've ever played it, man, X-Wing's one of the best. Like, it's just such a well-designed miniature game. It was really, really fun. And then I've played a lot of like really great board games. So yeah, this is it's definitely interesting to see at this time the changes that they are making to it, and from that perspective, I like a lot of these changes. And we're gonna get into them all in just a second. I want to watch the cinematic, and then we'll actually get into the changes themselves and kind of speculate, or I'll speculate on what I think they'll be. And then I guess as far as like if you are thinking about getting into the game, or if you're like, Warhammer curious or whatever, and you might be like, okay, so what happened last night? What was the announcement exactly? And how would I use what was announced last night to make better decisions leading up to 11th, right? In my hobbying or whatever, right? Well, I kind of think that they've made it as easy as possible to do that. Almost everything that you would do right now in 10th edition, I think will still be valuable in 11th edition. Maybe you want to hold out on getting some of these new models that were announced or whatever, but by and large, a lot of the same principles will apply as far as like building out a balanced army, you know, trying to decide what kind of play style you like. All of that stuff is still there, very much so. Which I think is great. I think that's like a really good thing to do in terms of accessibility for the game. So I tell you what, let's watch this trailer and then let's just get on into it, ladies and gentlemen. Have you all seen the trailer? Let me get this properly set up for us. Yeah, I'm really excited. My take on it, it literally feels like they pretty much removed like all the kind of horse shit from the game. Like, and I'll explain more as we go through all of it, but there would be a lot of, when I was getting into the game, there was a lot of like, okay, that I feel like I understand the design intuitively, and then there would be all these hang-ups where I'd be like, okay, but this doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, that can't actually be the intent of the rules, and a lot of like explaining it and explaining why. And I think a lot of that has been streamlined. Like, it really truly feels like it's going to be a lot easier for people to get into the game and understand it and play, which is crazy. Like, that is absolutely insane to me. Quick thoughts on the Invincible episode yesterday. Yeah, I didn't like it the way I wanted to, man. I was hoping to like it a little bit more. We'll talk about the stuff in the trailer too.
Armageddon. The war world.
The war world.
Its soil is worthless, salted by the blood and sweat of generations. War is all that remains. It rises from the dust and echoes in the sky, a promise, a cacophony of endings.
Woo. Oh no! Man down! Goddamn greenskins!
Sanguinius' sons, angels of death.
Oh! Damn!
Our veins burn with his wrath. Our twin hearts hammer with his rage. War is all that we know.
Crazy.
There can be no retreat. There can be no mercy. There can be no peace. There is only war.
Sounds good to me. Like me some of that war. Okay, so let's go over this. So there's actually like, I think a lot of different things they're subtly teasing in the trailer for the next version of the game. They tend to do this. They'll like tease new models, but also like maybe things that are like important or whatever. So when are we getting live action Warhammer? Very soon, brother. So this is all to say that the next edition is at least going to start narratively on Armageddon. Armageddon is a very famous planet in Warhammer. And it's not a death world, but it's like a constant war world. Like, it's basically just always being fought over. Now, immediately, the one thing that I think is going on in this, and you can kind of read into the rules they've already announced, is chaplains are going to be way better. I think all characters are going to be way better in 11th edition, but the thing that it makes me think of is, so when I first got into the game a couple of years ago, I was like, holy shit, the chaplains are like the coolest looking things in this fucking game. Like, they're the guys with the skull helmets, and they're very like holy. They can call you out for being a heretic and stuff like that, but they're not everybody just becomes a chaplain or whatever, and they are fucking cool looking. One of the problems was that they're not always great to use on the tabletop. To be honest with you, a lot of times they'd be like underwhelming. Like they really did not. They were like so cool looking, but they weren't actually viable on the tabletop. And I think, frankly, that's the biggest thing that GW is trying to fix and sort of signal with 11th edition, is that the shit that looks cool, the stuff you take time painting, you will get a lot out of on the tabletop here. So you have this Angel's chaplain in a jump pack. So he's like part of an assault intercessor squad, but he's a chaplain.
The war world.
The war world. Its soil is worthless. Yeah, so like it's just been literally constant war on this planet, so you can't like grow anything on it or whatever. It's just a war world.
Blood and sweat of generations.
Okay, so a couple of different things that I'll say just for the complete and total normies when it comes to Warhammer here. So this appears to be, I believe, I think this is a Blade Guard veteran. I could be wrong on that, but like, so he's got that shield, and the shield actually has like a current of energy. So you'll notice, like, you can kind of see it there a little bit. There's like an energy to it. So it's more than just a shield. It actually provides some kind of like electromagnetic or like force fielding kind of a thing. You see the power sword with its energy, coming from there. It's a similar thing. It's almost like the way the weapons are described is that they come to a mono-molecule blade edge. So they're literally like an atom in length at the end of their blade. And also they get charged with that energy. So they become like a lightsaber made of Beskar or like vibranium or something. And you can also notice that you see this thing on his power back here, guys. Oh, actually, make sure you guys can actually see this shit. Yeah, you can see. Okay, you see this thing above his power pack here? That actually provides a level of protection as well. That's a halo, and what you'll see is the chaplain has one as well, and you'll actually get to see a little of the energy that goes over the chaplain's body that gives him like a halo of force field protection too. But that's what that is actually. It's not just a decorative thing. You see that? You see the energy on it? Now, here's something interesting. So you have Ultramarines, okay? Now, what we were just looking at were Blood Angels. This is clearly an Ultramarine here. You can see this is the symbol of Ultramar on his pauldron here, and he's got the blue armor. So that's kind of interesting. Now, that's not uncommon for Armageddon. Armageddon has all sorts of Imperial forces sort of constantly fighting on it and convening together and whatnot. But it's interesting that they chose to show this when the rules, which we'll talk about in a second, seem to suggest that you can have a real modulated army. And what's interesting is if you think about what a modulated army or an army force might mean, while considering that some of the detachments, even in the game right now, have a chapter identity kind of sort of subtly written into them, like it's not hard to imagine maybe in 11th edition being able to run different groups of Space Marines. Now, the thing that here's like macro thoughts here, and I'm speculating, but I've actually thought for a while that they were going to do something in the lore, like bring the legions back or expand, how the legions work together in some way, or how the chapters work together, because I think there was some ceiling in the sense of being a collector where it didn't make sense to like expand your army once you got to a certain point. Okay. However, if you bring legions back and you also make it so it's actually fairly common to have different chapters or groups or even, you know, legions, I guess, of Space Marines on the same army with perhaps different rule sets, that feels like accurate generaling to the world of Warhammer, right? So I think it's kind of interesting. I don't want to read too far into it, but I guess I fucking did. It's cool to see the Ultramarines on here too.
Is all that remains.
Bam, bam!
From the dust and echoes in the sky, a promise, a cacophony of endings.
So this is kind of interesting too, because they literally show the aircraft coming in and doing some major damage here. There is a rumor suggesting that the way aircraft are going to be handled in 11th edition is going to be like much better than what it was in 10th, which is good because aircraft in 10th edition was fucking terrible. It was like basically unplayable. Nobody in the competitive scene really ran aircraft, which sucks because the models are so cool. Again, think about the thought process behind all these decisions. If it looks like a really cool fucking model, you should probably make it fun to play with so that people will buy it and paint it and play with it. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of their model. So I can see even maybe this trying to sell you on it. Because imagine you're like 14, 15 or a forever man-child like me. And you're like just getting into Warhammer or whatever, and you see this 11th edition shit, and you're like, okay, bro, look at that fucking plane just mowed down all those orcs. That's fucking cool. Can I get that plane? Yes, you can. Here it is for way more money than you thought, but you can get it. You know what I mean? Like, that's Warhammer. And then similarly, this will probably be a new orc coming model. Looks like obviously something anti-tank or whatever here. Anti-aircraft. A little orc boss. Oh shit! So you know what's interesting about this is like this guy's a chaplain, but he only has one of these plugs, which means he's only been a Space Marine for 100 years of service. So how did he become a chaplain with 1 century of service? That is pretty wild.
Sanguinius' sons.
Here they go.
Of death. We belong here.
Oh, slice and dice. Oh, get him. Bam. Now again, this is to me like when I first saw this trailer, I was like, finally, because it feels like, dude, they're showing you how fucking badass the chaplain is, right? They're like, dude, look at this dude. He's front and center in the trailer. Look at how cool he is, dude. Watch him go John Wick on all these orcs. You want this model? Of course you do.
With his wrath, now twin hearts hammer with his rage. War is all that we know.
Ah. Okay, now this looks to be some kind of like orc sorcerer or it's using warp power and orc tech, and it's like vomiting out like warp energy or some shit. Okay, now you see that? Did you see that? That's what I'm talking about with the halo. Yeah, you see how he's got like it's sort of clinking off, and you can see the force field. That's coming from his halo. It's kind of built a little bit more into his armor. The other guy kind of had it on top or whatever. But yeah, pretty cool. And that's like some area of effect warp energy power thing. Yeah, it's definitely fucking people up. So the chaplain should have some protection from the warp shit. Maybe do the armor, but also just due to faith and the relics and all these things. So that's why he's able to kind of come through and end this threat.
This world must hold.
I can't. Oh, chaplains, let's go.
There can be no retreat. There can be no mercy. There can be no peace. There is only war.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Any questions about any of that? And then we'll just get into the rules changes, man. I got lots to say about this shit. I've got so lots to say about that. We should look back at Hulk's verbiage when he said the snap. Maybe the universe is halfway through normal and the X gene is starting. Yes, that's absolutely possible. We will look at that when we talk about it on... is that a Weird Boy? Is that what they're called? So do they just call their warp people Weird Boys? That was a weird dreadnought. Is it a weird dreadnought? Let's see. That's a Belisis.
Peace. There is only...
Yeah, it's a Belisis. That's the las cannon. It's got the missiles. It looks like it's Ultramar. Right? I think it's Ultramar, yeah. Hell yeah. The thing is, a lot of these clips are always Space Marines. They never give Xenos love. Yeah, I mean, I think, just like with Marvel, if you were to look at like Marvel and Warhammer, Marvel does a lot of Spider-Man, a lot of Avengers, a lot of like the big characters, right? And there's obviously like a myriad of Marvel characters, but they do tend to focus on the ones that like are the most popular, or at least they should. And it's the same thing in Warhammer. Space Marines and the Imperial armies really make the whole hobby go around. Like it's the most popular faction. Space Marines get the most love. I think Games Workshop does an incredible job with most of the other armies. There are a few armies that get fucking left out on the cold for sure, but I think they're going to be fixing that up. So yeah, I would expect it to change from here, but totally. Yeah, weird is the psyker, pain is the apothecary. Oh wow, I like that. Yeah, see, this is interesting. I don't know a lot about orcs. Adam is an orc player, so he knows these distinctions, and I do not. After watching that, Dr. Doom, there is only war. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into some of the changes that are happening, and maybe I can... Necrons have been left out lately? No, they haven't, brother. Necrons are the most busted thing in the game right now that everybody is hoping gets nerfed into oblivion. But yeah. Okay, let's... I tell you what, here's what we'll do. Let me pull up, because I, like many of you... Well, if you're in the Warhammer community, you probably watched a bunch of videos on this shit. So I went through Auspec's tactics video... And it was pretty good, and so I just screenshot and stole all his PDF type work, and then I'll talk about it. And it's okay, because Auspex is the best, and you should go obviously support his content. So he won't be mad. He'll be like, okay, cool. At least this guy's being honest about stealing my shit. Okay, let's get this pulled up here. All right, so. We gotta get just a little bit of music going on here. Nothing crazy, just a little. Okay, that's good. Okay. We're just gonna go through this again. If you don't understand Warhammer or whatever, you might get a little lost in the sauce. That's okay. Maybe you can come back to this video, or we'll just talk about it in the future. So, 11th edition dropping. It is probably going to drop in the summer. I don't know if they gave an exact date, but essentially last night was the confirmation that the next edition is coming. Technically, they didn't even call it 11th edition, which is kind of interesting. I wonder if they'll call it something else. But here's like the main thing. So they did a presentation. The presentation had that trailer, which was awesome. And then they broke down what to expect with the rules for this next edition. The main thing that they said was that every game of Warhammer in 11th edition is going to be story focused. Now, this is actually really cool, because I think this is the main complaint of a lot of Warhammer fans currently with 10th edition. 10th edition tried to streamline, and it tried to simplify the rules of previous editions. And as somebody that got into the game in 9th edition, yeah, for sure, it got crazy. If you're a D&D player, it reminds me a little bit of like 2nd edition and 3.5 versus what ended up becoming like 5th edition. Like, a lot of people that are really into D&D appreciate 3.5 and all of its complexities, but like it's very hard to get people to understand 3.5. So 5th edition is like the easy, like, okay, this is all streamlined or whatever, right? But with the streamlining kind of came a lack of flavor. And in fact, let me see, maybe I could actually just pull Tabletop Simulator up and explain this. But almost all of the games in 10th edition, you would be like on a map and there'd be all this like terrain and stuff. And then you'd have these really cool models. And then randomly there would be these 3 or 6 big circles on the board. And these circles were objective markers. And the way the game worked was you played while trying to sort of fight and defend against your enemy. You were really trying to score primary objective points, which would be being on these circles. And then you were trying to score secondary objectives, which would come randomly through cards, or you would select them before the fight. And so every game of Warhammer would essentially be like at least half of the game was, how do I defend these random circles on the map? Look, I liked it. I liked 10th edition. I thought it was cool, but it certainly wasn't very immersive, right? It's like there's circles on the map. So they decided they're going to do away with the circles. And the doing away of the circles is to try to make the game feel more story oriented. Okay. Now, a lot of people right now, I think the entire Warhammer community is trying to wrap their head around what this means. And I'm just going to come at it from my perspective, somebody that really likes the game. I'm relatively new to Warhammer, but I've been playing strategy games my whole life. And I like the design space. Okay. So number one, there's going to be over 70 new detachments day one for all armies. Okay. Meaning like there's a shit ton of new detachments that are coming. So on day one for 11th edition, you'll have your codex and detachments that come from your codex, but then there will be a ton of new codexes that are out there that a lot of people will be using in a variety of ways to build their armies once 11th edition kicks off. Okay, but here's what's crazy. First, it says here, focus on units that haven't had a chance to shine. We already went over this a bit. To me, this means the leaders and the really cool looking models. You know, the chaplains look fucking awesome. The planes look fucking awesome. They haven't had a chance to shine in 11th. They're going to get that chance, and this is all by design. Now, when it comes to detachments, it says detachments will work differently. These new ones will be modular. When I heard this, man, I was like, holy shit. Dude, I got like a fucking boner over this. This is awesome. Modular. So potentially a sub-detachment for one unit class and one for another. Okay? The example they gave was bikes and Terminators. And I'll just briefly explain this to people that are not like fully, into the game or whatever. Terminators, slow-moving, heavily armored, strong guys. Bikes, fast-moving, not as armored, fast guys. Right now in 10th edition, if you want to build an army with both, depending on which army you're playing, you're probably only actually going to have half of that army supported by your core rules. So you select a core rule for your army, and it's the whole army, okay? This leads to weird exploitations, but it also leads to weird examples where you're just... an army that you would think would be fun and balanced is actually, not, right? So that's bad. It says here, could basically double the amount of army rules bloat unless are simplified versus current detachments. Yeah, so this was Auspex kind of saying, like, there's a lot of concern over these. And I understand that, but I think once you realize that the detachments actually select your primary for you, I think it'll self-regulate. But we'll talk about that in a second here. Okay, so a couple of other examples that they gave were Emperor's Children, one that would help the Emperor's Champion. So let me explain this. So in the Black Templar army, there's like one character that is considered the Emperor's Champion. It was Seisman, and he wields a special sword and has special powers. And so what I'm thinking is, like, they're basically saying that if you like Black Templars, you obviously like the Emperor's Champion, you love that idea. Well, guess what? We're going to make a detachment that will grant special powers to the Emperor's Champion, dude. Like, we're gonna actually like do that, but it's only going to work for like your Black Templars or whatever, right? Coronate Demon Engines. This is like, okay, I'm playing this Khorne army, but I really want my firepower to get some help. I really want my like anti-tank or my tank weapons to get some help. And because if you play demons, something that'll happen is like you've got certain stratagems and certain things that only work with demons, and some of your demon tanks are just monsters and vehicles. Like, they're not demons, actually. They don't have the Khorne keyword or whatever, right? Or they'll get one of the keywords. So that's kind of interesting. And then they said there's one for the stealth suits of Tau. So essentially, like, you could run in Tau. They're suggesting that you could possibly run one detachment for your stealth units and your infantry, you know, and your scouts, and then a totally different detachment for your Riptide battle suits, your like massive battle suits. Okay. I think this is so fucking cool, dude. Like, I think this is so awesome. I think it's going to crack the game open. It could have something to do with some of these other things, like, you know, maybe the legions coming back or modulated armies with different groups of Space Marines together. You know, one thing I've always wanted to do is play my Custodes with my Dark Angels. Like, I've always wanted to do that. Like, maybe even if you have to make the price higher, like to play a thing of Dark Angels and then have like just one unit of Custodian Guard hang out with the line or something, like, would be so awesome. So I'm interested to see, you know, where this goes and what the dealio is, but also, you know, I don't know. I guess I just don't want to get too ahead of myself. Yeah. What do you guys think of that? Does anybody have any questions, or should I just go to the next one? Let me try to get this pulled up here. Here, you know what? No, I'll just do it this way. Bah, 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 bah. 70 detachments day one. That's going to be crazy. Okay. This is another really interesting part here. Let me get this pulled up. And I'll see if you have any questions on this. So it says, forced disposition generates the mission that armies fight over. This is interesting, okay? Now, I think a lot of folks are getting this wrong as well. So it says, so if one army wants to seize territory and the other army wants to get kills, that determines the mission being played. Yeah, so what we're talking about here is something like a key and lock system, or like a fusion dance system, okay? So when I first heard them talk about this, I was like, okay, so each person will have their own primary, but that's not what it says. It actually says that the combination, the disposition of both armies will decide the primary mission. Now, what that probably means is, like, they've selected primary that will make for interesting story matchups, right? Because remember, like, one of the things that they said at the beginning was like, it's going to be narrative focused. Every single game is going to get narrative focused. As an example, let's say you're, and this is just hypothetical, okay? But I think I'll probably be right about this. So as a hypothetical, let's say you're running a big chunky army. Okay, you've got Terminators, you've got tough dudes, and you are holding areas. That's what you want to do. You want to hold areas. You want to be siege masters. Okay? And then let's say your opponent wants to slaughter. And they just want to slaughter. They're just a kill army. They're just like a rush you down, beat stick like kill army, okay? So, I think what'll happen is there'll be like a matrix, and it'll say, okay, here's the story then. The slaughter kill army has savaged across the land, is about to take a incredibly important relic or thing from the Imperium. You have been called in and tasked to hold this select area for as long as possible until reinforcements arrive and we evacuate the relic and get out of there. And so what it'll do is it'll make it so you can't just turtle in the back as your army. You're still essentially using your army's skill, but it'll coalesce with what the skill and the objective of the other army is. Now, what I'm kind of interested in is it possible that the modality of each army does that also get factored into the matrix? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that would be incredible. That would be fucking incredible, dude. I don't know, because that seems almost like too complex. But wow, would that make for some absolutely incredible matchups? It would depend on how limiting and how well thought out the modular system is, and we just don't have that information yet. So, but either way, this is really interesting. There's some people are saying, like, you know, like even Auspex himself is like, ah, man, what if that's, you know, not dynamic or interesting? I think, au contraire, you know, mon ami, like this is really fucking cool. This will make for fun. At least I hope, I envision that it'll be like this, because it should feel, one of the things that Warhammer does well but needs to do better is it feeling thematic, and you play certain armies because you like the lore. The game should represent that, and then there's a cohesion. It all feels good. When there is no cohesion, it feels bad. So yeah, he also says return to 9th edition point scoring. Easier, harder for certain armies. Will be good if it winds up like that. Haven't said if it'll still be card-based system this time around. Yeah, so that's true, and I think there's reason to be skeptic of that. But I guess the concern that certain armies, like, here's what I think is, like, the problem solves itself. If there are certain armies that feel weaker in the design space given these parameters, then what you do is you make their objective and then how they plug into the matrix unique. And I think that, if done correctly, could fix like a lot of the problems that Warhammer currently has, right? Like, I think that would be pretty brilliant. Yet to be determined, you know, yet to be determined how much of that is actually going to show up in the game. But like, I'm pretty optimistic. Like, I'm getting excited about the possibilities. Does all that make sense? I know I'm probably throwing a lot at you guys. Okay, but I fucking want to. I'm thinking about this shit, man. Y'all got me thinking about this shit. All right. Let's stop for a second here, but yeah, this will be the next one that we go on. Does this make sense? Does anybody have any questions? Does that mean the Templars could get a narrative points for being in charge and in melee? Yeah, so yeah, for sure. I actually think, like, when you build the Templar army, that depending on what your detachment is, right? Because the Templars will have different detachments, right? But like, let's just say the Emperor's Champion one, right? Like, maybe the Emperor's Champion is like, he's like the ultimate like assassin, so to speak. Like, he's gonna go out and kill this thing in the name of the Emperor, and that's the whole thing. So your army's like a spearhead of like, let's get the Emperor's Champion to this enemy and kill this enemy. There could be like a way that when your army plugs into the matrix to figure out what the primary will be, the opponent will know that. Like, they'll be like, a crazy crusading group of Space Marines thinks your general must die. And, you know, you're cornered and now you have to deal with that, or something like that. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Yeah, we'll see. Okay, let's just keep going here, though. This one's really interesting. This is like a really, really, really big change to the game. Only one stratagem per phase for each unit. I gotta be honest with you. I actually think he got this wrong, Auspex. I think it's one stratagem per unit per round. I could be wrong about that, but like they said... Oh, I guess it could be phase, because the example they gave was charge and tank shock, right? Yeah, so I guess you could still stack in phase. So maybe this won't be as big of a deal, but stratagems are like special bonus things that you apply to a character. This will eliminate abuse of that system. So meaning, if you use a stratagem on a character to make them more defensive, let's say, you can't also then use a stratagem to re-roll one of their saves to try to like save out, which is a pretty common use of sort of doubling up on the stratagems. So this is just to sort of clean out the wackiness that would get into some parts of the design space where like you'd stack a bunch of command points and then basically make like one unit completely unkillable, which is good. So yeah, this will be good. And I don't see this being a big problem. It's also probably not that big of a deal, to be honest. I don't know. I think this one's kind of a nothing burger, but maybe some people are mad about it. All right, let's see. We got a couple more to go over. Oh, this is the one I was talking about with the terrain here. With the terrain. Okay, interesting here for sure. So you're not going to be fighting over terrain pieces like bunkers, relics, etc. Yeah, I think everybody's just jumping to too many conclusions on this, but yeah. Replaced by terrain footprints to determine the control of key locations, relics, or fortifications. So I'll tell you one thing that I haven't seen anybody talk about yet with this that I think is probably going to happen. In 9th edition, there was like a version of the game where you would each set up your own terrain. Where like I brought terrain, you brought terrain, and there was like a deployment phase with terrain before the game. So meaning like, could you cheese out some terrain stuff? Like maybe, but your opponent had the opportunity to do the same thing. I actually think that might be coming back because otherwise, like I think right now with the way that terrain works, this feels very goofy. Like it just feels so goofy because of the way that the terrain currently works and the way you think about like fighting down the lanes. It just doesn't feel right. But if we're taking turns placing terrain and I can sort of build my side of the board the way that I want, then this will make a lot more sense. Again, because the primary mission will be matrixed, right? So we will both know what that will be as we're doing that at the beginning of the game, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah, and then he's talking about more just like of the narrative here. You know, I think a lot of Warhammer fans don't love this or maybe don't understand it. As somebody coming from the outside in, I really think this is a great change. I think objectives need to go. I think the game needs to be more focused on killing anyways. Like, there's just, not to say that every army needs to play that way, but I found that the better I was technically at winning games, the less I was actually fighting, if that makes sense. Like the idea of trading, the idea of turtling, like the idea of move blocking and jamming and, you know, all these different things. I think the game at its higher levels was starting to get away from a miniature tabletop war game and was becoming a little bit too much like a video game. Like it was a little too exploitative. And so, dude, I like this shit, man. But I do understand it's a really big fucking change. Like that is, I'm going to be really interested to see how the different people out there think about that change, man. And then I think this is the last one that's kind of big. And then maybe I'll show you some stuff in Tabletop Simulator and we'll just chat it up. This one here, which, oh man, this is great. This is such a great change. I think we needed this. Okay. So they have reworked combat in 40K, especially when it comes to melee. Fast dice rolling is the standard, which it mostly normally is for now. This is, like, if you're not into the Warhammer thing, like this might not make a ton of sense, but essentially in all versions of Warhammer so far, at least I believe so, every roll technically happened individually. So when you see somebody say like, okay, so I have like this one guy and he's got 7 attacks. I'm just going to roll my 7 dice. Technically, he actually should roll them all one at a time. But you do fast rolling to make the game go faster. But it would cause all these weird fucking problems in the game. Like, for instance, if you were a big demon and you charged into like a horde of smaller space marines and you're doing your attacks, technically the person could pull the space marines out as they died to the point that you would actually be no longer in engagement range. So let's say you would normally have like 16 attacks. Maybe I pull the 3 space marines that are there as you kill them, and then you get 3 out of your 16 attacks, and then you're just sitting there looking like a fucking idiot. It never made any sense. It was like, this is such a goofy ass rule. And then I remember trying to like explain to my friends as they got into the game, like, okay, we're gonna roll all these, we're gonna roll them all. This is how you do it. And then to like later have to explain in these weird situations, like, well, technically you didn't roll them all together. You know what I mean? It's like so stupid. So I'm glad that's gone. I assume this just means you, as long as you're in engagement range, when you make your attack, all those attacks go through. You know what I mean? Which is really going to be crazy. That's going to be really, really fun. Fights first is now changing so that the player gets to pick of fights first units activating, which is really going to decrease the importance of this. Yeah, so this is, I think, another one that people don't, we don't understand this without the rest of the rules. But what GW is really trying to say is like, we're going to get away from some more fucking bullshit in the game. Like, it's absurd that you can charge a unit, and then because they have the fights first rule, whether it's like the Lion or a big unit with a Judiciary, it is absurd that they get to attack you first. Now, I still think that could be in the game, but instead of making it in the rules, give it as a special ability or some stratagem or something, right? So I really like this. I think it solves a lot of problems. It'll give more agency to melee armies. And then the pile and consolidate thing, like, dude, this is so cool. We don't fully understand what this will mean. But right now, and I, even as I'm trying to like explain or think of how to explain this, I'm getting frustrated because it's such a wacky rule. You charge in. Before you fight, you do what's known as a pile-in move, where every model can move 3 inches. And there's like weird stipulations where you have to move closest to the closest enemy model, okay? And then you do your combat, and then after combat, there's a consolidation move, which is another 3 inches. And dude, it was so fucking confusing. It was so messy. It was so stupid. So I think what they've done now is you're going to do all your charges as soon as you go into fight phase. All your units pile in. So you pile in everything at once. This will avoid some of the shenanigans where you'd kill a unit and then pile in away from a unit. You don't need to understand it, but it kills the shenanigans. And it will end a lot of just weird out of sequence movement that didn't make sense for the design space. So they've cleaned up like all of these little ways that the bullshit would happen, and I'm really, really excited about it. The other thing, and I guess I didn't screenshot this, but the other thing that's really cool is the charge. So now they've moved the charge. Oh, actually, no, he doesn't have it in here. They changed charging. So now you actually roll your charge and then declare targets, which is so crazy. And part of me actually thinks that they're going to let you move even if you can't get into engagement range. So let's say something's like 9 away and you roll a 6. I think they're going to let you move 6 if you want, as long as you're moving closer. I think they're going to let that happen. That's not confirmed in the rules, but like from the design space, what they're saying is like one of the most feel bad things in the game is missing a charge. Like it just like basically the weight of a charge roll is too high in the outcome of the game. You can miss a charge roll and it can completely fuck you. And that is not right. That's not good design. So they have removed that. And I think that's incredible. So like when I look at these rules in totality, I think number one, they address like the core problem that a lot of fans have had with the narrative and maybe the video gamification of the game. They have done a great job of trying to strip out the shenanigans. They've done a great job of trying to keep the game like individual. And like, so one more note on this whole module system, right? Right now in the game, there's technically a way to sort of do this stuff. And for instance, the difference between fixed and tactical secondaries, okay? So right now in the game, you could per se build a army that's really good at assassinating characters and then just take assassination as your fixed objective, and then your whole army becomes assassins and killing commanders and characters. But that's like such a weird word salad lead thing to do. It should be more the case that like if you build assassins and you use the assassin shit on them, then that automatically factors into the primary mission. and you will get rewarded. It's almost like you get the fixed mission without having to think about it. That's the better way to conceive of what they're doing in the design space. So, look, listen, Linda, okay? I know not everybody's into the Warhammers. Not everybody's figured out that it's the best, but some of you guys have. And, we're getting closer, and 11th is around the corner. They just announced it. I'm really excited about these changes, guys. So I wanted to talk about them with you. And then I can answer any questions that you guys have, right? Maybe you're thinking about how to move forward with your hobbying. Maybe you're still thinking about an army. Any thoughts, questions, concerns? That's a good screen cap right there. Any thoughts, questions, or concerns there, chatterinos? You can't miss anymore. You roll and then decide which unit you charge to. Great stuff. Right, but if you roll like a 3 and everything's 5 or more away, like, do you still miss? That's what I'm wondering. And I don't think you do. I think you'd go 3. All right, that's kind of what I'm thinking. So this is Dungeons and Dragons in space with Hammer? Yeah, kind of. I'm building my first army and still barely understand the rules. What actually is a detachment? Okay, that's a great question. No, that's cool. Maybe what I'll do... Here's what I'll do. Okay. We're gonna go to Wapedia. Why isn't it loading? Okay. Let me see if I can walk you through this. Okay. So let's say let's just do one of my armies. Okay. We'll do the Custodes. Okay. So if you decide you want to play Custodes, you then decide which detachment you will use when fielding them. The lore in this is like every army in the game has multiple disciplines, multiple ways of like doing things. Okay. So the first thing you get is an army rule. This is not your detachment. This is just something that comes when you play the army. For me, it's my martial katas or my martial karates. This was different in 9th edition. Hopefully it's better in 11th edition, because in 10th it was kind of boring. You just basically select if I'm going to get lethal hits or sustained hits when I do my fighting. Now, these are the detachments. Okay. The detachments give you another big army-wide rule, and then they give you enhancements and they give you stratagems. Stratagems, you can think of like your blue magic cards. They're like the things you do throughout the game with your command points to give you extra power in certain situations. The enhancements are like specific things you put onto certain models to give them a power bonus. Okay, so each detachment will give you a army-wide rule, a set of enhancements, which will cost you points when you build your army, but they will make your character stronger, and then a list of stratagems, which are like, sort of think of them as the deck of cards on the side of the board that you will slap down, to try to, like, you activated my trap card, I'm going to use this stratagem or something like that, okay? So just as an example, when it comes to Custodes, there's the Talons of the Emperor. This one is all based on using your Sisters of Silence and your Custodes together in close proximity. They like each give each other an aura. It's actually a pretty good one. These are all the stratagems. Shield Host. This one is basically about getting extra powers and being like the heroes and really, really powerful with the heroes. Null Maiden Vigil. This is one that's completely focused on the Sisters of Silence, not the traditional Custodes. The Auric Champion. I think this is all like the characters, and you make your characters really, really strong. Solar Spearhead, I think, is focused on your vehicles and your dreadnoughts a little bit. Lions of the Emperor gives your Custodes a bonus for fighting on their own with no reinforcements around them. And they have a list of cool things there. So does that make sense? So essentially, right now, each army in 10th edition has a variety of detachments, which mostly come from your codex. And the cool thing about 11th is your 10th edition codex works. If you go out and get a 10th edition codex for whatever army you have today, it will unlock that in the app. It will show you, all of the models and the rules. Now, they will change a little bit because of the new updates that are coming. But, you'll have access to that. Now, going back to 11th, On launch day, they're launching over 70 new detachments. 70. So this will include all these kind of things that I just said, like, you know, focus on this part of the army or make the army do this thing. Over 70 of the new ones. Like, holy shit. That's going to be really crazy. But that's a good question. Any other questions? We got to see a game soon to make this make sense. All right, let me see if I can pull up a little game for you. Pull this up. I'll pull up what I want to pull up. Exclusive of those detachments. I definitely had this running through work. Okay. Banana. Okay. All right. Let's get this sorted. Okay. Let me just throw... Yeah, we'll just throw this on there. Okay, so this right here would be an example of a board. Here, hang on, let me see. Okay, so this would be an example of like playing on the board. So this is what I was talking about with like these circles. So in a traditional game right here, and let me get a couple models out. And let's just poop out some intercessors. We'll do a dreadnought. We'll do a captain. Okay. So, in the other versions, right? So let's say I was the defender. I was on the green side of the board. So basically, this is my home objective. Okay, this thing here. And I need to hold this in order to have some points. But I also need to hold one or more of these in the center. Okay? So these are your what they would call no man's land objectives. But basically every game would kind of come down to, like, let's say I had this group of little homies here, right? Like, essentially what I'm really trying to figure out is how to hold this objective and maybe this objective while preventing you from being able to come over and take them. So, like, the games would, they just all would kind of, like, look similar where, you know, there's a concept of, like, trading where you put out something weak and then it's like chess, and they take the pawn, and then you take the thing that takes the pawn, right? Or you'd jam. So you'd try to be on here, and then you'd have another unit of your army over here, like, jamming up this lane so that nobody can come through, and you're just standing there. But, like, it felt to me, like, always a little weird that because of that, you, like every game is going to come down to, like, the same thing if you're playing well. And what they're kind of doing now is, like, they're kind of saying, let's delete these. So now they're kind of saying that, like, oh, okay, so you're a fortifying army, and I'm going up against, like, a kill army, right? So maybe, like, instead of them being here, it'll be like, okay, you've got to find a ruin in no man's land where you can hold out to heal this being that you need, or this tech priest or some shit like that. So now, instead of the game being like, you know, gun lanes, jamming, sitting, trading, like all of that, now the game can become like, okay, I'm now over here holding, and this looks like a good area. This is where I'm going to do my shenanigans. If you want me to not score primary, you better come stop my shenanigans. And it just feels better, right? So like that's like the general thing with the objectives gone. Okay, does that make sense? You have multiple attachments, but you can't use all the buffs on the same list of those detachments. I think that's like the way it's going to go now, yeah. What up, Kendall? So units have points, but so do detachments. So the detachments themselves don't have points. The enhancements have points, and the stratagems have a cost. Right? So the cost is associated with your command points, which is like just a resource. Like you just think of it as a resource. But yes, when you're building an army, each unit, well, each model really does have a points cost. They will come, like sometimes it'll be, okay, 5 models cost this much, but 10 models cost like maybe a little bit more than you would think because they're really trying to de-incentivize taking the 10. Most of the time it's pretty even though. It'll be like, okay, about 35 points a model. You can run 3, 5, 6 or whatever, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, so like, you know, when a new unit is announced, right? This is why everybody was losing their mind about the new Tau unit is it is so busted for its points. It has great rules, okay? But when you look at its rules, you would kind of imagine, oh, that's got to be like 200 points, maybe 250. And then it was 160. So like it's absurd because its cost does not reflect the power in a list. And that does tend to be a big way of like how certain units or models or armies become broken or busted. But the good thing about that is like that's pretty easy to adjust because they'll make an update and increase the cost of the unit or whatever. So yeah, but yeah, I'm excited. And so that's just a little breakdown of 11th, the new rules, how I'm feeling about it. It's like Christmas. And I think they'll probably release a little bit here, a little bit there over the next couple of weeks. And I will interrupt our Marvel streams as much as humanly possible to talk about all of the little updates as they occur. And we'll annoy everybody else and get really excited about 11th edition because this shit's going to be awesome. And I'm going to be playing a lot more in 11th. I want to go to tournaments. I want to make some content about going to tournaments and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm excited. Anybody have any other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? Does it make sense? Are you excited about some of the changes coming or what? June 2026, they said? Okay, that's cool. That is super cool. I'd love to see the start-finish process of assembling an army, choosing detachments, etc., until you have your army ready to play. Well, look, I guess what I would say is like sort of the way that the hobby's designed is you're gonna build like if you've never played a war game or whatever, it's like you're gonna want to have like cheap infantry units. You're gonna want to have more expensive infantry units that maybe do something specialized. You know, you're going to want to maybe have some bikes or some cavalry. You're going to want to have some tanks. You're going to want to have some anti-tank, you know. So you're going to want to have a you know, sort of varied array of units. But each army does have an identity. So, like, there's certain armies that you're like, oh, well, I'm obviously going to get this unit. It's like a keystone to the army and whatnot. So, yeah. Missions is what I'm most interested in. Yeah. I think so too. I think how that matrix comes together with the selections you make for your detachment is going to be so interesting. And then the modular, like how modular are we talking with it? I'm actually really interested in seeing that as well. That's going to be cool. A Warhammer tournament win? I mean, I'm not going to throw any Warhammer tournaments anytime soon, but I will be participating in some, hopefully participating in some big ones this year. There's actually like some incredible Warhammer players relatively close to me. Like this guy, I think he's one of the world champions. Maybe he won last year, maybe he won the year before. But he's a Custodes player named Folger Piles. He lives over in Ohio, and has like a local game store over there. So I'd love to go over there and play Folger. You know, like most things in life, playing an opponent that is better than you is how you get better. You know what I mean? So you gotta get whooped on. You gotta get whooped on a little bit by the big dogs. You got to get whooped on a little bit on the big dogs to handle that shit. You know what I'm saying? All right, everybody. Well, I'm going to get out of here. We have successfully had an all Warhammer stream about 11th edition, the new edition of Warhammer. We did it. You did it. Pat yourself on the back. Give yourself a round of applause. You know, just because some of the other Nerd Avengers don't understand, don't worry about it. They're dumb. But you're not. I just came. Don't stop yet. That's a weird thing to say in that order, but appreciate you, man. I need more. What more do you need? What more do you need? I mean, that's the basics, guys. That's what we got so far. What happens from here is more of it'll come out. They'll explain more because these were just the basics of the rules. But I think there's enough here to like. yeah. I think there's enough here to really sink your teeth into and really think about. I mean, the one thing I'll say is like some of this is probably like sounds like Greek or whatever, but just trust Papa Josh. These are great changes. I am incredibly excited to start rolling bones in the new edition, and I'm so excited to get out there and do some more painting, get some more models, and it's gonna be a good couple of years, baby. I wish they had shown more models yesterday. 100%, man. Yeah, that's definitely one of the only things they kind of didn't do a lot of. But maybe they'll show more today. They are at Adepticon all weekend, and I don't know. I think it would be kind of cool if they gave like more and more updates as the weekend went on. I think that would be kind of cool. But all right, everybody. Much love. I appreciate you guys. We'll be back at it with a regular stream tomorrow, but don't let that scare you away from asking some Warhammer questions tomorrow. Every little bit helps as we continue to try to get all of the Nerd Avengers to realize the truth that Warhammer is the best, and that we will all be so much happier when we get into the hobby. But you already know that. Appreciate you guys much. Love. And as I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.